All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl. I have the Sober Curious Yoga podcast panel with me again tonight. And if you have not listened to our previous episode, I have Lee in Ohio and Jules and Matt, who are both in the UK. And all four of us are teachers for the Mindful Life practice. So if you have not yet come to our yoga classes, check them out. If you want to hear a little bit about our sober backgrounds, you can listen to our previous episodes to kind of get a little bit of a background story on us. But we are going to be diving straight into our topic tonight, which is attending different special events being sober. Sober weddings, sober concerts, sober, you name it. We're going to talk about it tonight. So let's start out with, I'm just wondering if you all could tell us a little bit about one of the first sober special events that you went to, one of the first special events you went to sober, and what that experience was like.
Well, I've been to two this year quite recently. So I've been to a wedding about a month ago. And prior to that, I went to a stag do in July, like a bachelor party, whatever it gets called in different parts of the world. So I've been to those two events, and those are notorious for drinking, right? So I knew about these events a few months ago, and I felt there was a build-up, especially to the stag do, the stag weekend, where, you know, you've got 20 guys, a bunch of guys meeting up and pretty much drinking all weekend. And so I was a bit nervous about it. And so I've been to that one. I could talk about it more if you wanted to. And also went to the wedding in the summer. And that proved to be a bit harder, actually, than the stag do, interestingly enough. Those are sort of life events you go to, right? Where previously, you know, I've pretty much drunk a lot until I could drop, basically. So these were new things for me that I never have experienced before. It was really interesting. There's a lot of things, you know, to sort of take away from it. I could probably talk for an hour about. I don't even want to talk for a whole hour about them. But.
Wow. I've been to a wedding a couple of months ago. And at that point, I was about, I don't know, over a year sober. So I think that I had the benefit of having a lot of, in the scheme of things, a year really isn't that long for sobriety, but it is. Like, it's long enough to establish your, like, center in it and be strong enough. And your result, or at least for me, it was strong enough. Like, I feel like I was strong enough going into the wedding that I knew I wasn't going to drink there. I wasn't worried that I was going to drink or to be tempted. I was just worried, like, what options were going to be offered there. I am not nervous about dancing. I love to dance, so I can easily dance sober. So that wasn't really an issue for me. And then I also just, like, a couple days ago went to my first concert, and I wasn't worried about drinking at the concert, but there were a lot of people drinking around me. And there was someone who, like, had an incident, like, I don't know, they were in the crowd, they were calling for the EMTs. And I was like, is this person drunk or what? Like, and I could just hear people, like, being louder and talking different, you know, like, I could tell people were drunk, but the woman, I guess she was okay, who the EMTs called. But anyway, the thing that bummed me out at the concert was there really was, like, no alcohol-free beer available. And I actually made a note to the venue, and I said to them, this concert was awesome, but it would have been more awesome if you had an alcohol-free beer option available for people. They had sodas, but I'm not a big soda person. I don't really like to drink soda that much. I would have really loved an alcohol-free beer, but I ended up just drinking water. But that was a little disappointing because you can't bring your own beverages or anything into the venue. They have really strict rules about what's allowed in with you. At the wedding, they had alcohol-free beer options, which I really did appreciate that. And they also made, like, mocktails because they had, like, an open bar, but I didn't find that same kind of option available at the concert that I went to.
I had an interesting one. So I wasn't long alcohol-free. My partner's ex-wife had a hen night and invited me. So there's lots of dynamics there. And I have become friends with my partner's ex-wife and we get on really well. But I was quite new to being alcohol-free and I was incredibly nervous, and it was in the middle of the pandemic and it was a time when we were allowed to be out, but it was still quite nerve-wracking. And I remember going and I was so nervous. I was so nervous. And everybody looked at me like this. And I could tell that they knew that I was the new girlfriend. So I sat there and everybody was drinking. And I think there was lots and lots of sort of nerves around me. And my usual would be get drunk. I can talk to anyone when I'm drunk. But I've really realised that I'm quite introverted and I'm much more comfortable with like maybe talking to one or two people. I'm not good in group situations, and I've realised that when I look back at weddings and parties and events, I'm usually in the toilet hiding or drinking. And I used to smoke, so I used to hide behind my smoking because it's a really good way to chat to people and be sort of feeling on the outside if you're smoking. But I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I went to the hen party and I felt incredibly overwhelmed. I really felt overwhelmed, and I look at it now and I just think, blimey, actually, I don't know, maybe I should have gone, but I wanted to do it because, you know, it's a lovely gesture, but I ended up hiding in the toilet. And I texted my partner, I just said, please, can you pick me up? But there was a positive, there was a lot of cake, which is always a winner. So I recommend going to weddings and just sitting near the cake, just having cake. At least you get some kind of treats then. But yeah, that was a real baptism of fire.
I would say your life event there is quite unusual, Jules, because
it is.
You're going to the hen do of your partner's former wife. Girlfriend. Yeah. Okay.
I don't
Just
think
get
that's
my head
a
around that.
scenario. I don't think that's a scenario that most of the people listening to this are going to have. But there could be a scenario where you go somewhere actually feel really uncomfortable. And I think it's really important that actually we have the right to say no. And previously, in occasions, I'd have felt uncomfortable, sat on that uncomfortableness and got drunk. And maybe it made a tit out of myself or just, you know, falling asleep, which is what I used to do. I just used to go to sleep. Whereas now I just stayed for an hour. And again, you know, it's back to those boundaries. I gave myself an hour. I gave myself permission to go, yeah, I'm done now. I've had a nice time in the toilet, eating cake. But I just think it's really important to know that if you feel uncomfortable somewhere, in the past I'd have got drunk, whereas now it's like, oh, I don't have to stay here. I can go. I don't actually have to be here. You know, I've done my bit and that's enough and now I can leave. So I think if I was at a wedding or somewhere now, I think I'd feel a bit more confident to be there, but also to know when I've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me because my husband likes to stay till the end and he is still drinking. And so I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. And he's like, oh, really? Come on, let's stay a little bit longer. And I was giving him a ride home. I noticed that a couple of times. Like I've been out like graduation party for my daughter and my husband wanted to stay. And I was like, okay, I'm going to leave. And I left him there and he was like, I'll get a ride home. Forget who was someone that wasn't drinking. And then as soon as I got home, he called and he was like, can you come pick me up? I was like, oh. But I just had gotten my pajamas on. I'm like, oh, you're a pain. Anyway, but I could go get them.
But that's true though, isn't it? That you feel now when I've gone to events or gone out, and of course we've not been out as much because of COVID, but that you just want to leave at a normal time because, you know, I go to bed at 10:30. I don't want to be out past 10:30. And when I was at this wedding in the summer by 10, you know, I'd been there since 12. You know, for the wedding, I'd been out for 10 hours. I want to go home now. And, you know, when I was on the stag weekend, you know, we started drinking in the pub at 1 in the afternoon. You know, at 11:30, I wanted to go home. people stayed out till 4 a.m. It's crazy because you do start feeling uncomfortable. Actually, it's interesting you brought up that word uncomfortable. And also, I wanted to pick up on what Lee said about there being no alcohol-free drinks. I had the same problem at this wedding this summer. It was just ridiculous. It was at this beautiful venue, you know, this like, it was called Newton Hall in Northumbria, very, very nice. Had this most amazing bar. There must have been well over 200 drinks behind this bar. And I turned up with my alcohol-free drinks. But I thought there'd be an alcohol-free beer there. And they said, oh, we'll just go and have a look. There wasn't one. And I said, do you know what? I've just brought my own drinks with me. Is it okay if I bring them in? And this young barman was like, no, you can't do that. No, they'll get confiscated. And I was like, what? And that made me feel really out of it, really out of place. And so, but fortunately, the master of ceremonies, this old Scottish guy, was like, hey, no problem. You know, he's like properly like, that's no problem with that. I'm not going to do a Scottish accent, by the way. And he was like, you know, you can bring your drinks and no problem. And I said, you know, I'll pay to bring them. And he said, no, don't be daft. So he set me up with a little fridge, but, you know, there was nothing there. And that's just really, really weird because, you know, why can't we have like fully sober weddings and you know, meetups and stuff? And yeah, it was a real pain that for an hour while I was sort of stressed about it, you know, and what this barman had said.
Isn't it that if you're going out, if you're going to a wedding, party, whatever the thing is that you're going to get drunk. It's not you're going to go out and have fun. You know, if you go to a wedding, isn't it to get married and to celebrate the people that are getting married? And why is it about having to drink? Yeah. You know, and I think back to my wedding, and oh my God, that's all we thought about was the alcohol and how much alcohol we'd have, and we had our party in a pub. And, you know, that was the wedding was about, you know, lots of things, but there was a hell of a lot of drinking. And it's like, why is it that we're going to a wedding to drink? Why aren't we celebrating the couple? Why aren't we celebrating love and people being together?
Yeah. The socializing stops really quickly at these events. And I was listening to someone talk this week, and they're saying when you meet someone for an alcoholic drink, it's sociable for about an hour. And then the alcohol kicks in, and then all you're doing is chasing the alcohol. And there's a good model of that at a wedding. You go to the wedding, you have a little drink, and you sit down, you're at the dinner table in your circle of people, and you're having some good chats with people. Then people start drinking more and more, and then it changes. Then everyone gets up, there's a bit of dancing going on. And I saw all this happening at this wedding, and then people just aren't talking. They're absolutely out of it. The socializing has gone. These should be sociable events, but the alcohol kills the socializing.
Yeah. We went to a comedy gig for the first time a couple of months ago, and I love going to comedy. And again, I don't think I've ever been to a comedy gig sober. And we went to the first one, and it was outside, and it was amazing. And it was so lovely to actually just laugh. Because again, I was really nervous that how do I go to a comedy gig and not drink? That to me just doesn't make sense. I've been going to comedy for years. It's like comedy beer, comedy beer. I actually had, I think, more of a good time, and I really properly laughed, not just like that, as you said, chasing beers. I was actually properly laughing, properly engaged in the comedians, and then also the bits that weren't funny, I was just like, oh, that's not funny, rather than carrying on drinking, hey. It was just like, I just had such a beautiful evening. I think I was so happy to be out anyway, because, you know, it was lockdown time. And it was, I had a proper lovely date with my partner, and it was really nice. I was looking around everybody, and actually it wasn't a drunken atmosphere. I think because we were outside, and there was like lots of spacing around us, and it was really nice because, you know, people were getting served like food and drink as well. But we were allowed to bring our own stuff, so we brought some water. And I really was quite nervous about going to a comedy gig. I just really couldn't connect being sober and going to comedy. But I honestly, I had such a lovely time. I haven't done a gig yet. I've got a gig coming up, and I'm looking forward to that, seeing what happens there. Because I connect comedy, going out, music with beer. That's just in my head. So that's going to be, I think, the next thing.
Yeah, I definitely connect like concerts also with drinking a lot of beer, like any of those kinds of things. Like anytime I've gone to a concert before, there's pre-gaming where you drink before you actually go to the concert, and then you're drinking the whole time while you're there. And I've been to many concerts where I really don't remember any of the songs that were sung. And this one, I can look back and remember the whole set list. I could enjoy the whole thing. I remember different parts of it. So it was awesome to be in that kind of environment. And the other thing that I noticed, I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I mean, certainly there are some people that are at these events that are that have drank way too much. But I also am more aware of other people who are not drinking as well. And I thought everyone, when I was drinking, I thought everyone else drank, that you couldn't even go to these things. And I was at the concert the other night, and I did notice a few people who had too much to drink, certainly, but there were plenty of people around me that were just with like soda bottles or water bottles, and they weren't drinking alcohol. And I thought, that wouldn't have ever even crossed my mind when I was drinking to not drink at an event like that.
It depends what event you're at, doesn't it? I mean, to a concert in a couple of months, and it'll be the first one I've been to sober, but back at the wedding, it was quite obvious. I felt I was the only one not drinking there. And probably the only other people not drinking was like a couple of women who were pregnant. Like round my table, I think there was 10 of us around the table. Everyone was going for it. You know, and I had this guy had made me a little fizzy apple juice to have for the toasts. And, you know, everyone was drinking. But increasingly, as I chat to people, I am realizing there's more people who are not drinking than I thought generally in society. But weddings definitely feel like everyone saves themselves to get drunk at a wedding.
I went to a gathering with some friends a couple of weeks ago. And again, I noticed the people that weren't drinking, and that was quite a few of us. I'd say there was a quarter of us that weren't drinking. And it was really nice. The host, he had a soda stream, and was like really spending time thinking about what we'd like with the soda stream, and like was being, would you like this drink, and would you like that drink, and making us feel really welcome. Because I think sometimes I've felt at occasions like, you know, that, oh gosh, you're not drinking. Whereas on this occasion, I really felt welcomed, and it's like, you could try this, you could try that. It was quite interesting, because I bought a bottle of Prosecco, and I was like, I've got Prosecco. And nobody noticed. I was like, please ask me. Please, I've got Prosecco. Nobody cared. Nobody asked me. And that's the other thing I've noticed, that like actually lots of people just aren't bothered. People just, they don't talk to me about it. I don't know, maybe it's a fear or embarrassment, or they're just not that interested. But it's like, I was quite sort of proud of my Prosecco, and people didn't really notice it.
When you mentioned SodaStream, and I probably shouldn't say this on there, it's not really what we're talking about. I had a flashback to a birthday party I had where I tried to make sparkling wine by putting wine in a SodaStream bottle because I thought it would work. I mean, it didn't work, funnily enough, but those are the crazy things you do, right? And there's nothing wrong with laughing about those things. But birthday parties are another one, aren't they? You know, I mean, I don't remember my 40th birthday party after 11 o'clock, other than I was really sick. And I'm so disappointed about that, you know, looking back on it now, because another thing where you just black out from what happens. And I was invited to a 50th birthday party at the weekend, actually, and I couldn't go because it was my daughter's birthday and she was having a sleepover or whatever. But I was a bit nervous about what that would be like going, you know, because there were people there who'd know, you know, you like a drink and all this sort of stuff. And so I just started to remember that memory.
Yeah, I think I've done soda streams with various alcoholic drinks. They just end up exploding everywhere. Yeah.
But Jules, you were talking about the cake, and I definitely, like, normally if I would go to a wedding, I'd be so involved with the alcohol that I would totally skip the desserts. And at the wedding that I went to, the desserts were so amazing. Every single one of them was vegan. And they didn't have a cake, actually. They just had like a whole dessert table, like of all these different things. And it was amazing. I tried all of them, every one. I just, because there were so many different ones, I could just take a little bit of each one and try them. They were so delicious. And I don't think I would have even noticed that, like table. I would have been out on the dance floor. And so like in my own little world, I would not have even tried the desserts.
Yeah, I agree. You notice things, don't you? Like I noticed the food at this wedding. I enjoyed it much more. It was really delicious. I really savored it. That was my thing, to sort of eat that and be really part of the meal. Whereas, previously you're just chasing the drink. And it's miserable, really.
I think one of the things that I've noticed in myself is I'm becoming more comfortable in just being quiet. I think, again, because I'm quite introverted in big occasions, I tended to drink in order to manage them. And I'd often, especially with my ex-husband, we were really party heads. We lived on a boat and we used to have lots of crazy parties. And actually looking back, I don't think I ever was sober at all during those parties. And I think that I actually was about fear. It's because I was so nervous about being around lots of people, and that when I was drinking, it was all right because you could, I was basically just numb. Whereas now I'm really learning to go to social occasions and just be quiet, and it's all right to be quiet. I remember going to a friend's gathering and just being really quiet and just watching and not feeling like I had to talk, but also trying to feel comfortable with being uncomfortable, that actually it's all right to be nervous and it's all right to be quiet and it's all right to be shy. And I don't actually, because I tend to go into sort of facilitator mode and start trying to bring people together and chat, start like chatting away and asking lots of people questions, and then I don't really want to. Whereas now it's like I'm much more observant and able to just sort of sit back and just allow things to happen and to watch things and to be present and to just enjoy being quiet and observant. And that's quite different for me. And that's something that I'm actually learning and actually enjoying.
Do you think that's part of I feel like that's part of yoga too, like training us to be comfortable with the discomfort and sit with uncomfortable feelings and know that this uncomfortable feeling is not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And, definitely.
I check in with myself, and when I'm somewhere now, I just go, how are you doing, Jules? How are you feeling? Oh, I feel really nervous. I feel a bit scared. Oh, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, rather than go, I'm just going to drink. I have a toilet drink. Now I'm just like, I feel a bit too much. I think I'm feeling a bit anxious or nervous. I'm just really owning that, and then I can check in and then go, what do I need? Or what I need is just be really quiet, or what I need is just like a little wink from my partner just to reassure me that I'm okay. Or, I remember when I first was going out, I had like a load of buddies from various communities that I would contact. And I remember when I went to the hen night, I was just messaging them, just going, I didn't know what to do, I didn't know how to handle this. So I recommend that as well, as like having like a couple of like safe buddies that can text. Because sometimes when you're alone in a situation, everyone else is drinking and you're the only person being alcohol free, it can feel quite lonely. And I think if you've got other people that, even though they're on your phone, you can just go, oh my God, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, and I'm really scared. There's that reassurance that they've been there as well. So I think I would highly recommend doing that, is having like a, whether it's a Facebook group or a WhatsApp group, but just having a couple of people that you could just be honest with and say how you're really feeling rather than.
Yeah, I had that. I had someone I was sort of messaging on the day, and it really does help. One thing that came into my mind when you were both talking there was about how when you're sober, you have these very clear thoughts about what's happening. I've been very anxious lately. I can look in and really see the anxiety clearly and really see myself with that honesty. And the funny thing is, the wedding I went to, I ended up having a couple of conversations with people towards the end of the night who were quite drunk. And one of them was my friend's wife, which is a friend of mine as well. And she was, sort of talking to me about not drinking. And I was saying, I was drinking a bit too much. She said, oh, I'm not like that. I don't drink like that. And she's absolutely trolleyed at this point. you know, claiming that she doesn't drink too much. And, you know, it just made me think of that, how unrealistic your views of life are when you're drinking too much. And, you know, I don't need to stop drinking, all this sort of stuff. Whereas when you are sober, you just see things so clearly. And it is a bit of a curse sometimes, to be honest with you, especially when you're going through a tough time mentally, you know, because yes, we do know for a short period of time, like an hour, alcohol does take away some pain.
Yeah.
And then the other thing actually that is so great about going to these events is not to worry about feeling ill the next day. I've been at places and drinking loads, and I've been thinking, I'm going to feel ill tomorrow.
Yeah.
Doesn't stop me. That's okay. I'll just drink loads of water. I'll be okay. What a load of rubbish, you know. And it's so great just to know I'm going to wake up feeling great.
Yeah.
Definitely. I was so happy to wake up. I mean, I was tired after the concert, but I thought, I was able to drive myself home. I got home, went to bed. I was like, this is so great. I'm going to wake up. And I got up in time to do Alex's class the next day. And it was a harder class. It was the sweat class. So that I definitely would not have made it to if I had been drinking, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I was tired, but I felt fine in my head, like clear-headed, no headache.
Yeah. My first sober event was my sister's wedding, and it was at summer camp. It was a summer camp weekend, and our summer camp friends were like notorious for, we would hike out to the end of the trail and like ride a school bus into town and just get like completely wasted. It would be a truth or dare night. We would do all this crazy stuff. People would like steal stuff from the bar, steal the cat, steal the anchor. Like it was just nuts. And so this was like basically what was happening at her wedding. And I remember leaving. I was just at like whatever it was, 1 a.m. on the first night. I was like, okay, good night, guys. I'm going to bed. And I just remember the next morning, there's like 10 of us in a cabin and everyone just waking up and just feeling like crap. And I was like, this could not be a better first sober occasion. Because they couldn't get out of bed to go to breakfast. And I was like, bye everyone. And then they missed like a bunch of the day because they were napping, you know, in the middle of the day. And I was around like setting up the wedding. And then like the same thing happens again where they just get destroyed again. And then they feel like garbage the next day. And I'm like, wow, I had the best weekend because I'm not hungover. I'm actually like enjoying this being outside. And so, yeah, I totally connect with that.
It makes me feel ill thinking of the time when people talk about it, of the times I've been like that, you know, and also times I've kidded myself. You know, I've had some panic attacks before, and one of them I remember was when I'd been out sort of on a boys' weekend in Manchester, and I was on the train coming home, and I almost passed out, you know, and there was, you know, I had to have an ambulance called to when I got back to London, and all the way I never thought it was because of the alcohol. You know, it's like, you know, I went to bed, I woke up, I was feeling okay, you know, because I'm trained myself to try and power through. It's so awful to think of that, you know, and it was all the alcohol, you know, so much a part of it. And then when you see other people, you know, trying to, like in a hotel after a wedding, trying to eat their breakfast and they're so ill. What are we doing to ourselves, you know?
Yeah, and there's that next morning, I remember always being like, I just needed another drink in order to like get me a Bloody Mary. That'll make me feel better. And it did make me feel better for a little while anyway. You know, like it took that shaky, awful hungover feeling away a little bit.
Well, it's the most awful sort of science, isn't it, Lee? You know, scientifically it does something to you. You know, chemically what you've done to yourself is you recovered yourself with the thing that's made you like that. And it's just a horrible thing to think that we were doing that to ourselves.
Totally.
Do you guys ever remember like going to bed, like after a big binge weekend, going to bed like that Sunday night or whatever, like after the weekend and feeling like I just cannot wait to wake up tomorrow without a hangover? Like if I hadn't drank on that Sunday or whatever, the end of the time, like, and it actually would sometimes take like 2 or 3 days before I really felt good.
Well, the thing is, I remember it as being, you know, when you start to feel a bit better. And actually what that feeling is that you're recovering from illness. That's essentially what it is. It's like a recovery from having a flu or something. You know, you have a Coca-Cola and you start feeling a bit better and you can eat something and you're like, oh yeah, but that's all you've done. You've made yourself sick and, you know, you're recovering. And sometimes, like you say, sadly, we've used alcohol to help with the recovery, but, you know, that's what we were doing to ourselves. And yeah.
Yeah, I think my hangovers were just getting worse and worse. And I just realised, even when I wasn't drinking very much, because over the years I'd gradually decreased drinking, and it got to the point where even if I'd had one glass of wine, I was getting really bad hangovers. And then I twigged. When I stopped drinking, I did 30 days without sugar, and I realised that actually I've got an intolerance to sugar. So it wasn't just the alcohol, it was also the sugar. So, because I was not drinking, and if I had any chocolate or cake, and I'm not a massive sweet tooth, and I was getting hangovers, and I was like, oh, how can this be? How can I not be drinking and I'm still getting hangovers? I think one of the things I've realised is that the more I've not been drinking, the more actually that I've got more intolerances to so many things like caffeine and sugar and just everything. I basically noticed now.
It's because of being physically well for so long. You've actually treated your body properly. And I was chatting to someone yesterday and they told me they've had a bit of bad health lately and they're just checking if their liver's okay. So they're going to have 30 days off not drinking, see if that helps. And I was just like, oh, because it's going to help.
Oh, it might do.
Might, yeah, I can guarantee it'll do something for you. Yeah.
Well, I asked us one question and we seem to have answered all the questions. But it shows,
I need 10 more.
You know, how good friends we are and how naturally the conversation flows. Because I was going to ask what the events were like, what we were worried about, how we planned. Was there anything that surprised us? And it seems like we've kind of covered it all in this conversation. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to add about any of that planning, what you were worried about, what you were surprised about?
I would put a little maintenance plan together for myself if I'm going out now. So I have a maintenance plan of permission to leave whenever I need to. I can go to an event, and if I find it too much, I can leave after 5 minutes. I just give myself that permission now. I don't have to stay anywhere that I don't want to. Maybe check out before you go what alcohol-free drinks they have, and if they have any, because that's always a difficulty. Otherwise, you're just drinking water. And as leaders, I thought that was ace that you phoned them and just said, look, you know, maybe you should stock alcohol-free drinks. I think it's getting better. But yeah, I would have a maintenance plan, maybe contact a couple of alcohol-free buddies just to sort of cheerlead you on, just so that if you're feeling a bit nervous or worried, or if there's nobody else that you've got to talk to at the occasion, have them on the phone just so that you can go and hide in the toilet. Find the toilets. That's the first thing I do when I go anywhere, is I find the toilets where I can hide if I think finding is too overwhelming. And you don't actually have to talk. You can, you know, I tell myself now I can just sit and observe and I can watch and just still be present. And just because I'm not talking, you know, and constantly sort of dancing on tables or whatever, doesn't mean I'm not engaging. It just means I'm engaging in a more calmer way. But yeah, have a little maintenance plan of how to manage and how to take care of yourself, really.
I would say that's it. You know what I should have done about the wedding, and I would do this next time, although I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm probably not going to go to many weddings, and hopefully I won't have to. They're normally second weddings, right? And what I should have done was contact the people, my friend who's getting married, and sort of just check with him if there's going to be any alcohol-free drinks. You know, you feel a bit awkward doing it, but actually, why should we? You know, and you wouldn't feel awkward about asking about alcohol. It wouldn't feel the same. You know, it wouldn't. Well, just because you assumed it's there, and you know there's going to be alcohol there, and you know people are going to spend a lot of money on it, and they had. You know, they put a lot of money behind the bar. I should have said, you know, if you're doing that, you know, can you get a few of these in? You know, and I think that's okay to do.
They often will ask if you have a dietary preference, but they don't ask if you're alcohol free. Like
Yeah.
Because I did, when I responded to the wedding I went to, I told them I was vegan, and then I also said, and I'm alcohol free. Like, so I did kind of let them know at the same time, because I'm the biggest pain of like whenever I go out to eat, it's like I have to ask for the vegan options and also the alcohol free drink options. It's kind of difficult. I also have this thing in my head, like I want people to still think I'm fun, even though I'm not drinking. And
yes,
it's like, do I really need to prove it to, who am I trying to prove that to myself or to other people? I don't know, but I want, maybe I'm trying to prove it to other people because I want them to give it a try and realize that it is okay and you can still have fun when you're not drinking. I don't know. That's kind of, but I do like to stay like out and be like, okay, I can be out there and be with everybody. And I'm not really like, I guess I am kind of, so once I get there ahead of time, I kind of dread going to events a lot of times, but then once I'm there, I have fun. So I did find that was happening for me with the wedding. Like beforehand, I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't really want to go. But then once I went, I really did have a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I know what you mean, Lee. I felt like I sort of, in my head, I'm sort of trying to show people I'm still having a good time. At this wedding I went to, there was a few kids there, like sliding across the floor on their knees on the floor. So I did do that, and I thought I can do that, sober. But one of my daughters was even more embarrassed of me. I think she would have preferred me to have been drunk. But, I think you can have good time. But it's that thing again about that you normally should go home about 10 or 11. That's normal to sort of stop doing stuff like that. And that's what maybe people makes them think that you're no fun anymore. And it's, there's something I've got to address there about that with myself. And I think it's a long process because there's a sadness when I think about weddings and how it is all about the alcohol.
Yeah.
And that I can't get away from that these events are so linked to alcohol. And whenever I think of those sort of things, I worry that the alcohol-free movement is sort of stalled. I know it's not, because I see so many positive things going on. In fact, this weekend I'm going on a sober, no booze cruise. So I'm going on the River Thames, and it's an event. There'll be hundreds of people there, and there's no alcohol. So that'll be really interesting to experience that and see all these people having fun without drinking. It will be a nice thing after being to a wedding where everyone was drinking.
Yeah, totally.
Matt, I don't think that's your last wedding, because when your girls get older, then all of a sudden you're going to have all their friends, and you'll be invited to all. Like, I'm suddenly being invited to a lot of weddings that are my kids' friends that are getting married now. So I hadn't been to a wedding in quite some time, but now we have, I'm in that kind of that age group where my kids' friends and my kids will be getting married sometime, I would assume.
Yeah.
I mean, we've not discussed funerals either. That's another.
I haven't been to a funeral yet.
Me either, actually. Me either.
No. That's another one we'll have to be going to a lot of things too, unfortunately, as we get older.
I tend to hide in the toilet. That's actually basically my go-to, to go hide in the toilets.
Well, I guess dealing with sorrow and sadness, like, I think that's a way, like, if you have someone that you love, really love, die, that could be something for a future conversation, because that would definitely be a way that I would handle grief.
Yeah.
Grieving is with alcohol. Breakups, those kinds of things.
Yeah, we should do an episode on that. That's a new episode for us. Actually, I was thinking last week and thinking about it again today, is that I'm the only one of us that's single. So I'm the only one. We can't do a sober dating episode.
You'll have to find some.
But
I have some ideas of who you could do that with.
I did go dating. Sober because I was sober when I met my partner, and that was one of my things, was that I didn't want to meet people drinking, and that I'd done that previously, and that didn't really work out for me. So I met my partner and we didn't drink. I don't think we drank for a couple of weeks actually. And then when we did, it was great because at the time I wasn't really drinking. So we ended up going for walks, and we went to the theatre and went to comedy performances and stuff like that. And yeah, that was one of my sicknesses, is that I wanted someone that wasn't a drinker and definitely didn't smoke. That was a definite no for me.
Yeah. Maybe you and I can do a sober dating episode. This was so much fun. It was such a great episode. The conversation just flowed naturally, and everyone had so much to share about so many different events that we've been to. And I think a lot of people will get a lot of inspiration from everyone's different stories, because I know going to sober special occasions is like one of the scariest things in early sobriety.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Very fun.
And if anyone listening has any topic ideas on anything that our panel could discuss, we are here to stay. So send your question ideas, send your theme ideas to me, soberyogagirl@gmail.com, and maybe we will run an episode with this theme next time.
Thank you.
Have a great Thursday, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.